31 is below. Okay. We have the two parts of this malacha. Malacha is mamache, which is scraping. This was with leather. After you have now the leather, the hide that's going to be used as a covering for the mishkan. So then it was scraped, removing everything that's on the surface of the hide itself. And this would also apply to any rough surface that's going to be smoothed out, that's going to be scraped. So for instance, you have with the leather, it would be scraping the leather itself. And how would it translate itself in practical use is at one point, they used to have at the threshold, your front door, there was a sharp metal bar that went across the doorway. I don't think anyone has that. Anyone seen it? Maybe some older houses in England or somewhere. But what its purpose was to clean your boots. Now the roads were not paved, therefore there was mud. You didn't want to come and track your house up with mud. So you would have in front of every house, they would have a bar, and you would clean your boots before you walked into the house. Now, as it applies for Shabbos, is if it's sharp, we're not able to use it. Why? Because of the machik. It would scrape the leather. As you're scraping it, it's a sharp metal. You're going to be scraping a thin layer of your boot. Eventually, I guess they made them very thick. As much as you scraped them, you still had some boots left. But at one point, each time, the boot is becoming a little, the sole of the boot is becoming a little less because you scraped off part of the boot. So if it is a wide metal, so then that's no issue because you're not scraping the actual leather itself, you're cleaning it or not. So therefore, this would be, how would it apply now? With other materials, you have to clean your shoes. So then you could just clean them on the curve of the sidewalk. That would be fine. On a piece of wood, our first choice would be to clean it on the wood. Second choice would be, I guess, on the sidewalk. Third choice would be, what's our third choice? No, it's because trying to clean your shoes before you walk into the house. What would be our third choice? So we said you can't do it on a thin metal bar that's going to scrape your shoe, the shoe. Then you could do it on the wood, that's going to be minimal. Then you have the sidewalk, which is the stone. Where else would you clean your shoe?
Doormat?
on doormat, that would be fine. There's no issue with that. But there would be an issue if you are trying to clean it on the earth, on the ground, on the grass. What issue is there? It has nothing to do with this scraping, but rather plowing. Yes, yes. So you are, but plowing would be preparing the ground for planting. Straightening out the ground would go into that category. So therefore, if you have no other choice, again, it's something that your shoe has to be cleaned, and because of kavod habriyos, because of human dignity, you've stepped into something that you don't want to walk with, then you would be able to do the last resort, because your intention is not to straighten the ground, your intention is not to fill in any holes, intention is not to do any plowing activity to prepare the ground. So therefore, because of human dignity, something is on your shoe that is not acceptable, stepped into something. So therefore, as a last resort, we are permitted to clean our shoe on the earth. So into this category would also be, that would be with leather. Then we also have any activity that has to do with wood, for instance, if one is going to do sanding, sandpaper, sanding wood, its purpose is to scrape off any of the roughness and make the wood smooth. Doing that is a malacha, is a Torah prohibition. The same thing also would be scraping stone, smoothing it, scraping off the rough edges. That also would go into this category. These are all Torah prohibitions. The Tola, an offspring, which is also a Torah prohibition, would be the Ramareach, would be smoothing. That would be something that you're going to be smoothing a surface. And in that category, we have the smoothing out tar, smoothing out wax, beeswax. When you have for the, you want to seal the windows, you have that sealer, comes in a, what's it called? That's like something like a putty of some sort. What else is it? So using that and smoothing that surface would go into this category, a total prohibition of the malacha of mamachek, of smoothing, and that would be using those materials that is going to, same thing is also plaster, cement, all of this, doing that on Shabbos is a Torah prohibition. Okay, so let's see, let's go along this this chapter. This was page 262. We spoke about this last week. Let's see where's something how would it apply. If anyone has had the orthodontist would put on the braces. Anyone had braces here? Okay. Part of the braces was also you had beeswax. Yeah. Okay, what? Beeswax? No beeswax. Okay. You did have beeswax. Why did you have beeswax?
So the metals in your cheek.
Okay, you had the metal again, the orthodontist, how he installed your braces. Some of them had sharp edges. Sharp edges in the mouth was something that you did not want to have any cuts. So they would have the beeswax and they would put the beeswax on the sharp edges to protect your mouth. Now, doing that on Shabbos is a problem because again, the beeswax, you would have to sort of, usually you would put it in and then smear it out. Smearing it out would go into the category of smoothing. So what one would have to do it before Shabbos, put on enough of a supply of beeswax that you should not have to be concerned on Shabbos. Another issue with this malacha would be for Yontif, we have putting candles in the candle holder, in the lachta. So sometimes the candle fits exactly into the candle holder and it stays firm. Other time it's a little shaky. So what does one do for Shabbos? How do you assure that the candle is not going to fall out of the candlestick? Not the bottom. Okay. Now, so doing that before Shabbos is no issue. Doing that before Yontif is no issue. It's if you have a 2-day Yontif, you've done it for the night before the first lighting of the candles, that was fine. What about the second? Can you melt the bottom of the candles on Yontif? And the answer is no. That would go into this category also. It's softening the candle, then it's smoothing it as you're putting it down into the candle holder. It's going to smooth it out and have it stick to the candle. So this cannot be done on Yontif because of this malacha. Taking that substance that's going to be softened through the heat and then being pressed down, smoothed down. So that would be somewhere where it would apply. The issue of polishing silver utensils. So a very thin layer of the silver surface becomes removed when using some of the silver polishes. Again, it would be doing that on Shabbos. Yontif would be a malacha issue because again, we're scraping off part of the silver that the malacha that would be involved. Cleaning with steel wool. We have a few issues with steel wool. What was the problem with steel wool? When we spoke about in our previous malacha, using steel wool? What was the issue with steel wool that was the problem? No, but besides that, no, it was just using steel wool itself. Before we're going to say what we're going to use the steel wool for, using the steel wool itself was an issue if you're making it wet. What was the issue of making the steel wool wet? Squeezing, right? What we are doing, where even though the steel wool itself is not an absorbent material, but it retains the water, it retains the liquid, and therefore, as we're using the steel wool, we want the water to come out of the steel wool to be able to do our cleaning. So that itself would be the squeezing, and for the use of the liquid that is inside. So that would be disha, that would be threshing, taking something that's absorbed and extracting it, and then in that case, we want to use the liquid that's inside. When we don't want the liquid inside, that would be another malacha. What malacha was that? When we're squeezing it out to remove the liquid. That would be no, but that would be washing, laving, because yes, what you're doing is you're trying to have that you don't put it out. You want it to be clean without the absorbed water that's inside. So besides those two issues, also the fact that you're using it on a material that is going to be scraping off the surface, that's a third problem that we have with the steel wool. So knowing what's involved is what we're learning about. So that is the issues that are involved. Page 264. What's involved with polishing shoes, leather shoes? What's the issue involved with polishing leather shoes? So number one, the question would be, what kind of polish are you using? Two kinds. One would be, what kind of polishes do we have? When polish shoes? You have liquid polish and you have paste polish, right? Anyone polish their shoes? No? Okay, so those who polish their shoes, they have two choices. There is the liquid polish, and there is the paste polish. What would be the issue with liquid polish? When you put the polish on shoes, leather shoes, let's speak about leather shoes. We're putting liquid polish on leather shoes. What's happening to the shoe? Softened. And what else is happening to the shoe? It's being colored. So here we are coloring the shoe, even though it's the same color, but the fact that you're putting on a new application of color on the shoe, that itself is a malacha. That goes in another category that we're not speaking about today. We're going to cover that in a further malacha. The malacha of enhancing, of coloring, or tseveya, we did cover it before. We had tseveya, which is painting, coloring. So that would be if you're using the liquid. What's the problem with the solid polish? Smoothing. Here we are. We're going to be taking off the polish from the container and then smoothing it onto the shoe. That itself is our malacha of smoothing, taking the solid paste and then putting it on the surface and then spreading it out, smoothing it out. That itself is the malacha. So that would be a Torah prohibition. Now, coming to, as far as foods were concerned, we spoke about last week. How is putting butter on bread? Is that an issue? Butter on challah, that's not, even though we're smoothing out the butter, spreading it out. Our purpose is not to smooth the butter, but rather to spread it out equally on the challah so we can have a challah sandwich. The same would be putting tuna, putting the egg salad, putting it on the challah bread, smoothing it out, that would be fine. Now, what about when you are making the egg salad itself? How would you make it during the week? You take the eggs, mayonnaise, no mayonnaise, whatever you've taken. Again, this is speaking about you've done that now on Shabbos. What's the permissible way? You're making the eggs and mayonnaise. What's the issue involved? You're making lush, making a dough-like substance. That itself is an issue. Same thing would be also with our potato salad, our tuna salad, our egg salad with mayonnaise. We're taking any other food product that is fine and adding an oil to it and putting it together, like coming to mind would be the chopped liver. We will add some oil to it and then put it together. What's the issue there? Making a substance that is a dough-like substance. Is there a problem with the making the eggs fine, breaking them down to very? Is it a problem? She said no problem because it doesn't come from the earth.
Oh, yeah.
Making the eggs fine is good. There's no problem making breaking down the eggs to very fine particles. Same thing would be with tuna. It's a fish, doesn't come from the ground. The same thing would be now with potatoes. There you have an issue. You're breaking down, making mashed potatoes. That would be the issue because you're taking something that grows from the ground and making that into a fine substance. That would be called grinding. But as far as the eggs are concerned, the fish is concerned, the cheese is concerned, grinding does not apply to those things. But what does apply is we're speaking about the lush, about making a dough-like substance. So what would be, so if you want to have something that's fine, a fine egg salad, tuna salad, potato salad, you want to make it fine, you would do it before Shabbos. Or you're not going to use any mayonnaise, you're going to eat it as is. No issue there either. Now, if you do want to make the egg salad, tuna salad on Shabbos, what would be the permissible way? You're going to be using mayonnaise or any other binder. What would be the permissible way to do it?
If you cut the eggs big.
That's right. The malacha is making into a dough-like substance. If it's recognizable, you see the eggs, you see the tuna, you see the potatoes, so then you are permitted to add the mayonnaise with it, making a binder, but you're not making it a dough-like substance, you're just putting together your salad. So now, what about when you have our salad, you're making it on Shabbos, you did it in a permissible way. So what might there be an issue at the end when you finish the salad? Where might there be an issue of our malacha of smoothing? So we said that there's no problem smearing the butter on the bread, smearing it out, avocado, smearing it out. That would not be an issue because
Because you're eating it.
so and also you just want to spread it out, not to make it look nice, but rather you're doing it because you want to spread it out. You don't want to eat it all in one lump. You want it to be spread out so you could eat it for your eating benefit. Now, if you are going to be smoothing the platter of egg salad, what would be the issue there?
To make it look nice.
There we go. Why are you doing it? You're not doing it because of convenience of being able to eat it better, but rather for its looks, to look nice. There are different opinions about that. Does this malacha also apply to foods as well? So when you're doing it for your benefit of being able to eat it, that would not be the issue. But if you're doing it because you want it to look nice, that might be, according to some opinions, they'd say to refrain from doing so. So this would be according to different communities, which halachic authorities they follow. So I just want to bring out in class that to smooth it out after it's finished, just to make it look nice, look fancy, that itself might be an issue for according to some opinions. So just be aware of that. We spoke about the three different consistencies of different products of body spreads. So we have something that's Vaseline-like. Using that on Shabbos and smoothing that out would be Torah, rabbinic, or permissible. That would be taking Vaseline and smoothing it out on your skin. Is it permissible or not?
No.
Okay. Is it a Torah prohibition? Is it rabbinic or is it permissible? Some said permissible, it's not Torah or rabbinic, and it would be Torah because it has substance, it's a solid. And taking the solid and smoothing it out would be the same as the beeswax. It would be the same as the tar or plaster. It would be go into that same category. So that could not be used. Now, what would be rabbinic? If it is semi-solid. We brought in a product last week, the Fisher hand cream. So there, if our test would be if you put your finger in and you put your finger in, and is it left with a hole like Desitin or Vaseline that would leave it with a hole. With this, it would close back up again. So this is rabbinic because it is semi-solid. So we cannot do that on Shabbos. What we could use would be something that's a liquid. We brought in Cetaphil last week. The same would be baby oil, baby lotion. That's it does not have any. It's a liquid type of. Now, when it comes to liquid soap, what category does liquid soap come in? Mhm. So you have something that's called liquid Shabbos soap. What makes it liquid Shabbos soap? Okay, so you could make your own liquid Shabbos soap by getting something that, and you have the others that are concentrated. It's 5 times concentrated and 10 times concentrated. It becomes like it has it flows with substance to it. It doesn't pour, it flows. So what you can do is make it into Shabbos liquid soap by adding some water before making it into a liquid. Instead of having something that flows, it pours. So there you got your. Now another issue that makes it into a Shabbos soap. Did you ever smell the Shabbos soap? You ever see Shabbos soap? Okay. What does it smell like?
Me, I don't smell anything. It's kind of diluted.
That's right. That's why it's Shabbos soap. It should not have. You should not use it as an odor enhancer. In other words, there's certain when they are selling the different soaps that you have, they advertise what kind of scent it has. So the proper Shabbos without a liquid soap that should not have any issues at all is that it's scentless, or if it does have a scent, it's not a scent that you would want to use as a scent enhancer. So usually it has like it does have a smell like coconut, a coconut smell, which is not pleasant. It's just there because that's what the substance it's made of. So the ideal liquid Shabbos soap would be one that is not scented, or does not give it. You're not using it for its scent, and it also is a liquid pourable item. As far as using a bar soap, that could go into the category of smoothing. You're taking off the surface of the bar as you're using it. The same thing would be when we spoke about our deodorants. You have the stick deodorant. Also, as you're using it, you're scraping off the surface of the stick. Same would also be with our. So we said that the roll-on, which is a liquid, is fine. Same as also with the spray, is fine, as long as you're not using it as a substitute for perfume. So if you're using it to take away body odor, then that's its purpose. You're not trying to scent it, but rather to take away negative. So that would be fine. Someone is, yes? Well, perfume, we're going to cover that also. There are different opinions about using perfume on Shabbos if you're scenting your body. Putting it on the garment that is scenting the garment is a prohibition. Using it on your body, there are two opinions about it, and the Alter Rebbe takes the more strict opinion. In other circles, they will take other, the halakhic authority that the Alter Rebbe relies on is one that it is forbidden to scent the body on Shabbos. You could put it on before Shabbos, no issue. You're just a strong perfume that'll last, as long as you want it to last. So there are other authorities say that since it's on the body, it's temporary, it's not going to be a lasting, and therefore creating a scent on the body would not be forbidden, but we have the two opinions about it. The Alter Rebbe takes the more strict opinion. What did we say about using a toothbrush on Shabbos?
Well, you can't use the normal one.
Can't use a normal one. What does it do? It retains the water. What might it also do if it causes any bleeding? That itself is an issue. You cannot do that. If you're using the paste on it, so the toothpaste would be that second category. It's a semi-solid. You don't use that. So what would be a Shabbos toothbrush? What would be its properties? I brought it in last week. I didn't show it to you. So I brought this the Shabbos toothbrush to see what it looks like.
Bristles are made of rubber.
Okay, so you have the rubber bristles that do not retain the water. If you put it into, we experimented once with our toothbrush. We put it into water, we took it out, and then we swished it, and no one in class got wet because it didn't retain the water. So in the beginning they used to make the rubber toothbrush, the rubber bristles, and nobody could use that because it wasn't practical. So it's just that you have your, in case you can't, some people have that they feel that they can't, last a day without brushing their teeth or whatever. So at least they have the option that they want to. At least they know they could if they want to, but they wouldn't because it's not practical. But they did enhance it. That the one that I bought last does seem to be a normal toothbrush. It's not like the rubber ones are like big bristles, and it was very it was very impractical to actually use. But the one that they enhanced, so I don't know who gives the hechsher to say that it's a Shabbos toothbrush. They say to use it with a liquid or use it dry as is. So what you could use is the Mouthwash. Okay, so there we go with mouthwash that one could do. Flossing, as long as you're not tearing the floss on Shabbos, as long as your gums are healthy, it will not cause any bleeding. You could floss your teeth also. So you have the ones that come already pre-prepared, that you don't have to tear the floss, but it comes a little floss teeth enhancers. So that would be.
I heard somebody say that even when you're using mouthwash and your Shabbos toothbrush, you should not like brush your teeth with the mouthwash. You should first brush your teeth dry and then like use the mouthwash.
Okay, so it matters what kind of toothbrush they're using, I would think.
Oh.
I would think they're using a dry toothbrush, so it's not retaining any water. They don't want to get the toothbrush wet.
Right.
I think so it would be with a Shabbos dry toothbrush. So
Right.
some people will rely on that as well. We don't recommend it, but some people will say that a dry toothbrush.
Oh no, sorry, I meant like a dry Shabbos toothbrush.
Speaking of that,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, speaking of that. Okay. So see, playing with modeling clay. Again, we have the clay, making shapes, or silly putty. That again also would be smoothing. That is not a Shabbos game. If one does have an issue of having to put some ointment on a wound, so if we are concerned about infection, so that is something that we have to take care of on Shabbos. Ideally, if you know about the condition, what would be the ideal thing to do? Prepare everything before Shabbos. So you would put it in a sterile packaging. You would put the ointment on the Band-Aid, bandage, gauze pad, whatever it is you're preparing. You'd smooth everything out the way you prepare a number of gauze pads of how many you'll be using. Prepare all of that on Shabbos, put in a sterile container, and then use them as needed on Shabbos. If it did not happen on Shabbos, it's something you have to deal with on Shabbos itself. So what could we do? So again, if it's a liquid, you have, I've read about it, but I've never seen it actually being used. You have liquid bandage. Liquid bandage, it's a spray, and it forms a protective cover on whatever you're trying to protect. So then you're using the liquid spray. I've read about it. I have to get one and see what it's really like. So that would be a choice. Using an antiseptic spray that they do have different sprays that they have as antiseptics. So that would be our first choice. If that is not possible, then you glob on the surface itself. You take from the tube. We're speaking about it's a semi-solid tube or a solid tube, putting it on the infected area, and then putting on a Band-Aid or a bandage as needed. So we're not going to be smoothing it, because that itself would be this malacha of smoothing. What happens if you have to smooth it? And it's a place, we are concerned about an infection. It's something that is serious, and we have to take care of it. So what's the other choice? This would be the extreme situation where you have no other choice. It has to be smooth. And what do you do? Okay, do it in an unusual way. So instead of smoothing it out as you normally would smooth it, you would use the back of a finger, something that would be done in an unusual way. We're speaking about a special circumstance that you have no really other options. So use all the options before. One of the options would be also to have someone who is not Jewish to do it for them, because normally you cannot ask a non-Jewish person to do something for you that you yourself are not allowed to do. However, when someone is ill, so then you are permitted to ask directly a non-Jewish person to do certain activities. So if someone, now, what about a baby? What status does a baby have? So we consider a baby, because of their sensitivity and fragile, we consider them like someone who is ill. So whatever could be done to an ill person, we could do that for a baby. So even though it's not really, if they have a rash, and you have to, whatever has to be done to take care of the rash, so you can ask a non-Jewish person to do it directly. You don't have to be hint or anything of that sort. Tell them directly, because since when it comes to someone who is ill, you're allowed to have a non-Jewish person do that activity, especially if it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, it's a rabbinic prohibition. So then that's for sure you can ask a non-Jewish person to do. So that would be our, if that is a choice, we take that choice. Someone is in the hospital, ask a nurse to do this, if that's the situation. So so that would be, so we treat a small child until the age of, I think, what age do they give? I'd have to see what age is considered, anyone under that age is considered like like an ill person. There you could do different things for an ill person. Also, as far as we're concerned, there are certain things as a Jewish person could also do for someone who is ill. So small child would go into that category. Okay. I think we covered pretty much this thing. Then we go now to the next week. Next show, we'll go to the next malacha. Anyone have any questions?